Please welcome Senior Vice President, OCI, Mahesh Thiagarajan.
Hello everyone, welcome to CloudWorld. I'm Mahesh Thiagarajan. I lead Security and Developer Platform at OCI. Today I'm very excited to talk to you about cloud security and how Oracle is actually helping you prepare for the new normal. Before I dive in, obviously this is, a lot of what I talk about is, general product direction, aspirational. So please use it for information purposes, not for purchasing decisions. When you think about cloud adoption is not, no more an if, but when. And most enterprises are actually going through this massive journey of moving multiple applications at the same time. But if you think about the complexity of them moving to multiple clouds, staying on premises, how do you handle the complexity around these environments? How do you actually keep up with the security bar for all of these different environments? How do you actually protect against the new evolving threat landscape? And how do you handle data sovereignty and compliance, right? These are the challenges. But if you think about the security professional's life, this is a constant juggling act where failing on any one of these things can actually have serious consequences, right? We know that a lot of these security tasks that I talked about actually involves throwing more personnel at it, more security personnel at it. But as more human tasks are generated as part of security, the probability of error goes up, leading to more consequences, right? If you think about what is actually happening in the industry, about 33% of the organizations have actually either seen a ransomware attack or have had some sort of a data breach, right? But if you look at what is sort of the fundamental reasons behind it, is about misconfiguration, stolen credentials, not having the right security posture or security bar. And you can obviously say, hey, let me go do more tasks and throw more humans at the problem, but really, cybersecurity talent shortage is still there. And post-pandemic, that situation has actually gotten worse, right? And there is another statistic and data that talks a little bit about how 82% of the data breaches were actually had a human element or data element to that story, right? And that's just to name a few, but if you really kind of expand and say, hey, how do you deal with hybrid work post-pandemic? How do you think about the geopolitical risks? How do you handle more fraud if you're a web application, right? There's a lot of concerns that, kind of bothers all of the C-level execs at this point. But we have a different perspective of how we want to go solve this problem. What if we actually made security prescriptive and integrated pervasively into the platform so we remove a lot of the human element out of it? Second, people are already spending a tremendous amount of time thinking about migrating those applications into the cloud, but now they have to think about maintaining the security bar on the cloud as well. What if we actually removed that pain and said, hey, the third-party software and the security solutions that you're using, you can repurpose that as you come into our cloud? How would that be? What if we convert security to trust and actually enable you to make it a business driver where you think about these things slightly differently than just say, hey, I have security? And lastly, how can we simplify our ability to assure and have more control over your data? So to simply put, Oracle's approach to security and privacy is in 3 different dimensions. 1, simple and effortless, where we take and shoulder more responsibility, bring our best, and make it easy for you to get started. 2nd, deeply integrated. As you think about the evolving environment of hybrid cloud and multi-cloud and distributed clouds, how can you actually have a security strategy that is consistent in this world? And 3, most of the attacks and everything is after your data. How do you actually have complete control of your data? And I'll go deep talking about what Oracle is doing to innovate in this area. First, let's talk about simple and effortless. When we started building out Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, it was sort of a second coming for a lot of us. I come from Azure before this, right? And we took a moment and said, hey, we have this tremendous experience of holding enterprises' mission-critical data with databases over 2 decades. What are the things that our customers would really care about when we build that into our cloud? And we started at the basics and we said, hey, we need to ensure that every single computer should have, an off-box network virtualization device. We're going to isolate our code from the customer's code. We're going to make changes to Oracle Linux that gives you the isolation primitives that prevents another customer to attack you. We did all of these investments so early in the stack to actually give you a defense-in-depth strategy. We thought long and hard about our network architecture to ensure that you get the right isolation primitives that guarantees you that your isolation is, your traffic is isolated away from all of the other customers. And that's just to name a few. I'm going to go dive deep in some of these areas. So on the storage and database safeguards, when you think about storage, it's object storage, block storage. You can store a lot of data in many plethora of different set of services. But when you think about security, Oracle gives you a lot of choices in terms of how you can actually store and encrypt that data at rest and in transit. There's a lot of options in terms of bringing your own keys, certificates, secrets, all of that. So we have a plethora of choices to actually make that possible. But the more important or interesting thing for me is the data that you store in Oracle databases or our MySQL databases. And so we purpose-built a capability to ensure that customers of Oracle databases are able to discover and mask sensitive data in their dev test environments, prevent unauthorized access to data, and actually also monitors for your user activity and see is there anything malicious that is going on or anything untoward. And lastly, this capability is not just available in the cloud, but also for your on-premise databases, but managed from the cloud. And the same thing around MySQL. Once again, purpose-built, trying to take all of these rich capabilities down to the database level so you can actually sleep well at night. Let's talk about compute and OS. I talked a little bit about the off-box virtualization device and all of that, but there are a couple of things that I want to mention here that is really around every single physical bare metal instance that we actually have on our cloud comes with a root of trust card that essentially protects you against hardware supply chain attacks. And we were the first to actually introduce the notion of bare metal cloud, in the industry. This is not a thing that was there before, right? So security was a thing that we thought from the beginning. And before I jump into this slide, we take patching very seriously in our cloud. But when we ran into the issue of actually the Spectre meltdown bug and said, hey, we need to go patch our fleet completely in a very, very short duration before there's an attack exposed. Our cloud runs on our autonomous Linux. We had the flexibility to say, hey, we're going to go patch all of this with zero downtime in about 4 hours. And the same capability that I'm talking about is available to all of you as well. Monitoring and prevention. This is an area that, when you think about coming onto a new cloud provider, there is a tremendous learning curve that it takes to actually just learn the cloud. And then you have to think about securing the cloud, right? And we build our services on top of our own platform, right? And it was sort of interesting. And so we went back to the drawing board and said, what if we actually took all of this work and made this a product? Because we can't secure 300 services again and again and checking the same thing again. So that's how posture management and monitoring services were born, where we basically said, imagine a world where all of the bread and butter of what Oracle does in terms of building all of those detections to protect ourselves, we make that available to our customers. They build on top of us as well. So with CloudGuard, you get these hundreds of out-of-the-box detections that can be enabled on a single click in your account that is constantly watching over and sending you emails telling you what you could do wrong in your account. And second is a completely different perspective about prevention, right? Monitoring is all about, hey, something bad happened, I'll take a look at it, I'll either prevent it and react to it. But imagine a world where you can place all of your applications or build your applications in a completely secure zone. It is driven by policies, but it ensures that you cannot do things wrong. You cannot create a virtual network with a private subnet. You cannot create a public, an instance with a public IP. You cannot create an object storage bucket and put it on the internet. Those things are not possible in a security zone, right? And so we have essentially thought of these two fundamental pillars around monitoring and prevention, and we're continuing to innovate on top of CloudGuard. And lastly, on the effortless side, one of the biggest challenges, you can monitor a lot, but if you can't see your entire asset and inventory, you cannot really monitor it. Problem number one. And two, especially with the rising number of software supply chain attacks, it's impossible to keep hold of the third-party dependencies and the software dependencies and the supplier dependencies that all of you have. And this is a very, very hard challenge. And what Oracle is going to do in this space is introduce the notion of a configuration management database that fundamentally enables the ability to move all of the events and resources that are available in the cloud, in your infrastructure, directly on this database, so you can actually query it. Two, you can also emit custom resources directly into this database. So if you're running on-prem, you have other assets that you want to actually, this whole thing to track, you can push that information as well. Three, you can also start tracking software changes and software supply chain related records and information on this database. So once you have this database, it now actually serves multiple purposes. Purpose A, hey, can I get a rich inventory of my assets? And can I join that against to see, hey, is this actually secure? The second problem that we actually end up solving with this is really the fundamental operational problem. Hey, is my stack up? When I say there is an application, what is it made of? There are some fundamental questions that people don't understand at the higher level when you're sitting in the SOC and trying to answer these basic questions. And the CMDB enables you to solve all of those problems. And lastly, it is not a store that is a point in time where you get the latest alone. Our idea of the CMDB is to be able to allow you to look back in time and say, what did this application look like 4 hours before? What did this application look like a month ago? And that question is what you need when you're actually in a ransomware situation or a data breach situation or you're investigating a security incident. That rich information is super important to make those trade-offs and choices. Right? So to bring it all together, what Oracle offers you is a comprehensive set of security services that you can actually leverage to get protection at every single level. These are some features and services that are available. I didn't go into each one of them, but all of them are available for you as customers to protect yourself. And second, we use the same technology to protect ourselves as well. Okay, here's a code. We recently looked at Cisco. It was a good customer of ours, and they talk about how they leveraged CloudGuard as one of the first things that they did is like, hey, I'm learning a new cloud. I'm just going to go turn on CloudGuard. And then they collect a bunch of events about their identity logs and information and push that to set up really cool dashboards on our platform that powers their SOC, right? And this is a great example of a customer and their security journey on OCI. Now let's talk about deeply integrated, right? If you think about Oracle Cloud, it is one of the most complete cloud platforms that is out there. You have a plethora of choices on your database. You have an infrastructure that is now even more flexible than it ever has been. You have SaaS applications that powers your back office in ERP and HCM. You have industry vertical applications leading all the way into healthcare. And now we're also offering all of this in multiple clouds. So it's one of the most richest platforms that exists. Now think about the distributed cloud that we're talking about, the world we live in. Oracle gives you Exadata Cloud at Customer a lot of choices to deploy on-prem. So you have a hybrid cloud situation where we have about 40 plus regions for global companies to run. So we have 40 plus. Two, we can also give you a dedicated cloud. So every single customer, like we have customers like NRI and the country of Oman who have all bought dedicated cloud directly from us. And four, we're also now offering our highly valuable services on our other clouds because you have asked for it. But what happens to security in this world? What happens to the complexity? How can we actually simplify that journey for you? So the way I think about it is, I think about it as a four-pronged problem and how Oracle is going to solve it. One, we really want to offer our security choices and solutions and extend them to on-prem. I talked about data safe. I talked about Exadata Cloud at Customer actually being powered from OCI, and we can actually manage it. So you get the privileges and permissions control from there. Second, we want to pervasively improve and increase our security solutions all the way up to SaaS. Three, We want to extend those capabilities and interact with multi-cloud, with Azure and AWS, and either it be sending our events or actually taking their events back in to give you that single SOC. And 4, make your life easy by not forcing you to switch into newer security services when you don't want to. So you can focus on moving your app into the cloud and not try to do both app migration and a security migration at the same time. So let's talk about what this actually means as we go in. Step 1 of this journey of enabling this is by having an identity platform that is unified across the stack. So that's the first problem that we chose to solve. And OCI IAM now provides a single identity as a service for both Oracle apps, non-Oracle apps, and all of your custom applications can actually also be built with robust MFA options, advanced lifecycle management, adaptive access. And lastly, for customers who have been using IDCS, Identity Cloud Service from Oracle for a while, IDCS and IAM are now merged together. The benefits of both of those platforms now come together with OCI IAM identity domains. So that's step 1. We talked about the hybrid cloud journey and how IAM and DataSafe and all of the security solutions are now reaching on-prem for your hybrid cloud journey. But then it just doesn't stop there. We progressively bring you closer as you move into the cloud. Now let's talk about the integrated capabilities for SaaS. I talked about, hey, the security solutions that Oracle is offering is pervasively moving up. What are some examples of that? First is Oracle Cloud Guard Fusion application detectors. What we have announced recently is the ability where customers get out-of-the-box recipes from Oracle Cloud Guard, that enables them to watch over your HCM and ERP deployments in your account. And you can also customize it. It looks for, you can actually set up rules where sensitive PII information about your employees or even your financials doesn't actually get leaked. So you can now turn this on at free of cost from Oracle pretty easily. Second, as we build our security services, I talked about how we leverage them for our own benefits. But one of the things that we did with our OCI Web Application Firewall service launch is that not only did we actually make it available for all of you through using the OCI WAF and integration with load balancers, but we also pervasively integrated that for all of the Fusion application customers. So all Fusion application customers get auto-enabled WAF in front of their load balancers. We're looking ahead and protecting all of your apps for DDoS protection, top 10 OWASP threats. All of that is being looked at. And the logs and the information about that is constantly going into our internal SIEM. Our Oracle SaaS SOC organization is looking at that and protecting you, but you don't have to worry about these things. Let's talk about the partner integrated security capabilities and how that's starting to come together in this world. We recently announced the capability where Oracle partnered with Palo Alto to launch a first-party next-generation firewall service that now enables customers to watch over and set up a cloud-native firewall powered by Palo Alto, and also allows you to monitor the traffic both on the inbound, outbound, and lateral, and do deep inspection on all of the traffic that's moving around. And this is very easy to set up on Oracle Cloud, and it's actually a fully managed service for you. Second, as I talked about, bringing the partners and your third-party investments and not changing a lot, we have integrated Qualys's headless scanning solution with our vulnerability scanning service. So if you're a customer of Qualys, you can bring those licenses, directly integrate that with our vulnerability scanning service without doing a lot of effort. And it is fully managed and eliminates the need and the work of doing any sort of patching agents. Let's talk about multi-cloud. As it's clear, more than 70% of the organizations have adopted multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud strategy. And some of the requirements, as we started thinking about it, what does it actually mean from a security perspective to bring that together? Obviously, we talked about identity, and there's more that we can do around authorization and token exchanges. We got to get an integrated monitoring environment where you can actually see all of the logs and data and metrics and events. You want interoperable key and secret management systems so you can actually decide, hey, am I bringing the keys from on-prem? Am I bringing the keys from my Azure environment? Am I using the keys from OCI? How does this actually interop? How can I actually easily make that trade-off and choice where I get flexibility to decide what I want? And lastly, security monitoring. How can some of the events that CloudGuard is actually doing can send these events automatically into my Azure environment, or can send it to my third-party SIEM that I'm running on-prem? How do you enable that? So these are some of the trade-offs and requirements that we have. But if you look at what we have done with the Oracle Database Service for Microsoft Azure launch, we have solved 2 or 3 of these problems at launch. We have enabled automatic identity. So when you set up your account and integrate with them, we automatically configure the federation between Azure and OCI. We have enabled the ability where all of the logs and network information about your database instances are going into Azure very easily. We've also automated the setup of your networking in a more safe and secure way, which is actually powered by a backbone that's connected between Azure and OCI. And we're just getting started. With that, I'd like to welcome Satnam Singh, Chief Product Officer from Thomson Reuters, to talk about their journey to OCI.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Satnam. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. I'm really excited to have you here. Obviously, we spoke a lot on the phone, but this is the first time I'm seeing you in person. But can you describe for the audience a little bit about your enterprise application use case and what you guys are doing on OCI?
Absolutely. Thomson Reuters is in the business of really helping our customers manage regulatory complexity, right? So this goes from a perspective of direct tax, indirect tax, which is sales tax, VAT, GST, as well as global trade with regards to supply chains, as well as on the legal side as well. What I'm here to talk about today is more on the indirect tax side. So if you look at indirect tax, it seems very simple, right? On the outside, right? Most of you go out there and buy something and you see a sales tax, but on the behind the scenes, really there's a lot of complexity that's happening in terms of what's the kind of product that's being sold. And as you see, right, this is about the rates and rules of tax logic. So we basically, we make all of this intuitive for our customers in terms of the software, and shield them from that complexity and really help them manage both the determination of tax as well as the compliance requirements that they have to meet in several jurisdictions globally. So we're in 205 countries, and we really help our customers manage these various jurisdictions.
Very cool. It's pretty exciting for me to hear that large enterprise customers like Thomson Reuters are betting their mission-critical workloads on databases, OCI. But I'd love to know more why you guys chose OCI. What is the reason?
Yeah, so if you think about it for a second, right, as I said, this is the tax determination that's happening. But that tax determination is happening right exactly where the financial transaction is taking place, right? So in essence, it's basically a commerce transaction, a financial transaction, and therefore the security of that transaction is very important. And so, as we work with OCI security, and what really helps us is we've set up basically, you talked about defense in depth earlier, right? So that defense in depth really has helped us set up an OCI landing zone within Thomson Reuters Cloud Center of Excellence for indirect tax determination. And if you think where OCI helps us, right, with regards to security, high availability, and the superior price performance, that allows for customers to expand the use cases, how they're using this data, without having to worry about capacity constraints. And that drives value creation for them, and it drives value creation for us. So, this strategic partnership that we have, we're very excited about it. And I think it has really helped us exceed our objectives, if you will.
Got it. Can you tell me a little bit more about how, how do you handle data privacy and data sovereignty, and what do you guys do there?
Yeah, when we look at data privacy and data sovereignty, right? So 2 things, right? One is, where we're helping our customers in terms of security of that financial transactions. And the other piece also is regulatory changes will continue to happen, right? So this is where we're looking at it from a perspective of saying, how do I look at data at rest, data in motion? How do I look at the application authentication? How do I look at the platform security? Again, going back to high availability, disaster recovery. And along with that, from a data sovereignty perspective, what we're literally looking at is customers want to know where the data is stored and where exactly it's being processed. So again, going back to the fact that we are in 205 plus countries, we look at the OCI locations that we have, and we have close proximity, if you will, to those OCI locations, and that really helps us, give these customers the confidence that their data is stored in the right place and the processing is happening in the right place. So again, gives those customers the ease of mind and of from a data processing perspective, and being able to hide that complexity, if you will.
Got it. Got it. I'm super excited about you guys running on OCI, and I'm looking forward to more workloads moving over.
Absolutely.
But
perfect. Thank you.
Great to have you here, Satnam.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
You got it.
With that, you heard from Satnam a little bit about how some of the most sensitive workloads in terms of transactions and what they do, privacy starts mattering, performance starts mattering, local compliance and sovereign laws start mattering, right? So now let's think about how in this new world of where there's more new laws coming every few minutes about data sovereignty and privacy, how can we solve for that? How can we give you more control? And today, if you think about it, the industry truly hasn't simplified complete control of data to enable all of your applications to move to the cloud. Because still, 80% of the enterprise apps are still sitting on premises. Some of those apps will move. Some of them probably won't move at all. And a lot of that has to do with data, at least from our conversations with some of you, our customers. And if you do get it wrong, violations lead to significant fines. You constantly see this, pressure about, GDPR, CCPA, and a ton of new privacy laws that are coming on a country-by-country basis. And how do you handle private data? How do you handle, sensitive information about transactions and financial data? So the way I think Oracle, and we want to solve this problem, is by looking at it in two different dimensions. One is really around the physical infrastructure. What can Oracle do to give you infrastructure autonomy? What do I mean by infrastructure autonomy? The ability to decide which location you can place your data and your data centers. The ability to decide who operates your data centers. Second, it's not just physical infrastructure. It is also, there is a role for the software and security software to play there. How can we actually enable you to look beyond basic encryption at transit and encryption at rest sort of options? How can we go beyond and think more about how is data movement actually happening in your application? Is that something that you should be worried about? Are you violating any of the privacy laws? So when you think about putting all of this together, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure will innovate on both of these solutions. Let me talk a little bit about what we're doing on the infrastructure. Today, OCI has 40+ public cloud regions where you can operate, meeting the local needs, and about 50+ compliance programs, giving you the guarantee that this is, following the local regulations and law. Second, we just announced the notion of OCI sovereign cloud for European Union, completely operated by European operators. 3, we have always had dedicated region clouded customer, giving you the flexibility to decide to build a cloud region with 300+ services from OCI right in your data center. And you heard about Oracle's announcement on Oracle Alloy, which brings partners, MSPs, and ISVs directly into the mix and offering clouds that can be branded as their own clouds to all the masses, so you can run a dedicated region and operated by your own people. That's the plethora of choices around control. And talking a bit more about sovereign cloud, it is one of the most unique regions that Oracle actually has offered, because it's a commercial cloud, but just for the European Union, operated by European operators. And lastly, it has complete isolation from our public cloud commercial regions. It is not connected at all. So you can't even accidentally make a mistake to move some metadata, even identity metadata, between a European cloud region to a public cloud commercial region. And we talked to IDC about our launch of Sovereign Cloud, and they had some really good things to say about how this specifically addresses some of the newer laws and restrictions that are coming in the European Union, how this brings in, gives more control to enterprises operating in the European Union to say, hey, I can meet the restrictions and guidance without actually worrying about creating 1,000 rules and detections to go solve this problem myself. Now let's talk about the role of software in addressing data security and privacy. When you think about data, data is stored in multiple different forms. It's in storage services like block storage and object storage. It is in database services like Autonomous Database, MySQL, all over. And when you typically think about protection, people do a lot of encryption, do masking, they take care of backup and restore to not lose the data. We focus a lot on loss prevention to ensure that, hey, we discover sensitive data amongst the treasure trove of data that you actually have, classify the data, and also help you not protect against exfiltration of the data. But that's where the industry stops today. What we don't have is a layer above, which basically says, how can we go above and say, look at data movement between your services. Look at data movement from your service to a third-party application that you may have integrated with. The data may be encrypted, but is it actually not moving the data that you care about? How can we actually give you more visibility about that data? How can we actually run anomaly detection? Because some of the applications that you're running is in like millions and billions of calls. Obviously, logging all of that piece of information and filtering that is not going to work. How can you actually apply more of an anomaly detection system that can look at things where data leakage is actually happening? And so that's where Oracle is actually going to innovate. And lastly, if we are able to perform and have a pervasive identity on the edge and access which can answer these fundamental questions about who was talking to who, what data was moved, why was it moved? And if those fundamental questions are answerable between services and between your service and the storage components, that's essentially what a lot of the audit reports are about. If you look at what some of the GDPR and compliance and all of these requirements are, they're essentially trying to fundamentally ask the question about who had access to the data, did you ever leak it, did it go to some place that it's not supposed to? And that's an unsolved problem in the industry. That's not a thing that people help you solve for. And so the focus has historically been here, but Oracle is actually going to focus on top and bring those innovations that has actually not happened in the industry before and bring it to you. Now, putting it all together, imagine the infrastructure autonomy that you get with Oracle, all the way from public cloud to Alloy, and you overlay the security and privacy capabilities that I just announced on top of this platform. That gives you the most complete control of data that allows you to sleep at night. To recap, we talked about how Oracle Security Services have the fundamental tenet of prescriptive and integrated. We talked about how in the world of distributed cloud, we are focusing on deeply integrating our security services and making your life easier. And lastly, we talked about how we can truly give you complete control of your data. Come build with Oracle. Thank you.